Everyone seems to love Makoto Shinkai's new film aside from me. Go Jesus is a hipster! He'll find things to hate about everything! And I had to really sit back and wonder if I was missing anything. No matter how many analyses I've read of the movie, no matter how many reviews prattling on about its brilliance, none of it rings valid to me. I like to think that I can share my opinions and have people listen, but obviously there's just so much joy this film brings to people, and I'm not here to take that away from any of you. Love Kimi no Nawa all you want. I'm just here to vent my frustrations about this movie and maybe lend a different perspective to the popular consensus that this is a near-perfect film.
There's something incredibly unique about this film that I've honestly never seen in live action or anime, and that is that this is a body-swapping film. So gorgeous. I love traditional hand-drawn cell animation.
Kimi no Nawa is a romance at its core, and despite an exchange of I love yous, it never really rings true to me. This is partly due to the structure of the script, but mostly to do with the execution of its characters. When I think of a brilliant romance, my mind immediately wanders to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which bears some similarity structurally to Kimi no Nawa. The beginning of both films harken to the ending rather than traditionally beginning. Both films deal with dreams. Both are about characters being separate. Joel is not in direct contact with Clementine, rather the her that exists in his memories. But there is contact there, and an absolute connection that these characters share because we experience their experiences, both the ups and downs of the relationship. Eternal Sunshine has a great structure. The first act is dedicated to the characterization of the two and the foundation of their relationship. Clementine is impulsive and needy, while Joel is socially awkward and lonely. They complement each other, but as the film explores, maybe it's not such a good complementary. The film establishes their chemistry and gives us a few good moments where we see them bond together in reality before we enter the dream. Eternal Sunshine emphasizes the characters' togetherness, even in their absence, while Kimi no Nawa doesn't. We see Joel and Clementine together, we don't see Taki and Mitsuha for the majority of the film together. And that's the intention Shinkai seems to be poking at, that love can transcend distances. With the hang-up that these two are learning and loving each other through experiencing each other's lives. However, instead of truly experiencing each other's lives, we are left to infer that these two characters have learned about each other or empathized with each other's experiences. We aren't shown that this is the case, and this is definitely in large part to Taki being a weak link in the relationship between the two of them. Taki hardly has any personality whatsoever. We know he's good at drawing and he works at an Italian restaurant, but we know next to nothing about his aspirations, goals, or past. If you analyze his room, you see that there's nothing but textbooks, which is standard things, he's in school, and some drawings he's done of bridges and buildings. That's the interesting part, which ties in loosely to the ending where he wants to, quote,
記憶の中であっても、なんていうか、人を温め続けてくれるような風景を。
And this is almost all we're given. Why Taki had aspirations to start drawing buildings and bridges in the first place is never explored. He doesn't really seem to be all that passionate about drawing either, in spite of being talented at it. What caused him to pick up the pencil? Shinkai is only using his talent for drawing for shaky thematics, which we'll explore later, and as a plot device. And as much as I didn't care for Garden of Words, Shinkai did a better job exploring the main character's motivation to be passionate about being a cobbler. And yeah, I tend to like characters more when I understand why they are doing the things that they are doing. While we explore Mitsuha's relationship with her family, we don't with Taki for some reason. What's his relationship to his father? Does he even have a mother? Are they both at work all day, or is Taki just out all the time? How does any of this affect his personality or emotional state? If his mother died, that'd leave a long-lasting impact, especially if his father is not around. Okay, how about looking at what he does in the present? Most of his character action in the present involves chasing after and trying to rescue Mitsuha. He doesn't even set up a date for her or anything like what she does. You have to infer that he enjoys the company of Mitsuha and her grandmother and sister, but you don't see it. I don't think tearing up is a very effective way of showing a connection between characters. There's no scene where Taki bonds with Mitsuha's sister on an emotional level, or really the grandmother either. Not even the scene where the grandmother relates to dreams or musubi do I see Taki responding in any meaningful way. In an emotional way. He is an observer. There's essentially nothing to him. So why this shell of a human being would even care about anything that's around him is astonishing to me. I guess the landscapes look pretty or something. Perhaps Shinkai was thinking that Taki would be a blank slated protagonist for us to slip into. You know, kind of like Bella Swan from Twilight. That's a harsh comparison, I'm sorry. If we as an audience from watching the movie know next to nothing about his character in spite of our omniscience as viewers in the world of the film, how can Mitsuha be in love with a walking husk like Taki? What does she know that we don't know? We don't see her learn anything about him through her experiences in his body. He doesn't even really seem to care about his job working at the Italian restaurant. It's apparently just a temporary stepping stone for his career. Her hanging around his school and with his friends as well as Tokyo does nothing to further her relationship with him. She doesn't explore his family life. She doesn't learn about his aspirations. What does she learn about him through hanging out in his life? It's like saying you get to know someone because you took up their job at McDonald's. Her relationship with Taki is utterly vapid and devoid of substance or reason for her to like this guy. It's extremely one-sided. And because of this, the romance falls apart. Okay, now imagine this scenario instead. Taki is emotionally distant from his father, and his mother passed away. They haven't interacted with each other in any meaningful way in years. Mitsuha, while in Taki's body, takes the opportunity to try to connect with Taki, and relates to his struggle of having had a parent die. She had it happen herself. So she tries to set something up with Taki and his father to connect with each other, instead of the meaningless date that he actually winds up going on in the film. Taki and his father then have a conversation together. Taki brings up landscaping and architecture, why he likes doing that, and his father would be proud of him for finding what he wants to do with himself. And this would make sense why Mitsuha would like Taki more, why Taki would like Mitsuha more, and give us some character history we desperately need for the guy. Mitsuha, on the other hand, is a different story. We actually know about her. We know she grew up training with her grandmother to keep tradition, and became a shrine maiden of sorts. She also had her mother pass away, and her father left the shrine to pursue politics, though how that makes her feel is left totally ambiguous. I could never tell how that impacted her life, really. We also know that her father is commanding. We also know that she doesn't like life in the boondocks and would rather pursue a city life. It's all fair. But even though Taki knows about her past a little bit, he doesn't know about her current goals, desires, or philosophies. In fact, until he drinks her sake, he really doesn't even know about her past. Well, it's more than Mitsuha can say for him, I guess. Again, it's very one-sided. He just knows about her family life to some capacity, and is already infatuated with her for whatever reason. I do not think her writing, though, is all that impressive and can be boiled down to a couple of cliches.
Someday I'm getting out of this town.
Honestly, what separates this romance from any number of Disney equivalents? And haven't they poked fun at themselves for the more basic romances they've done? Guy winds up with girl because they arbitrarily should? Bringing this back to Eternal Sunshine for a bit, I really think it's important to show the characters interacting with each other. Hell, Shinkai knows this because he did just that in 5 centimeters per second, a film which I appreciate a heck of a lot more than this one. That's the easiest way to start rooting for a relationship, in my opinion. Kimi no Na wa could have been a story about characters who grow to love each other based on experiencing each other's lives, but there needs to be a life shown in order to experience it. Challenges. Not just a time-traveling save-the-girl story. Emotional connections to people on a one-to-one level. If they can't experience hanging out with each other for the majority of the film, then give me Taki connecting to Mitsuha's sister. Have Mitsuha's sister have problems in school and Taki has to comfort her. Give me Mitsuha connecting with Taki's father, who has grown estranged from his son after his wife died. That's how I'd care, and think that they were really walking in each other's shoes, quote-unquote. In its current state, I don't give a shit about their relationship or if they wind up together.
Take my advice, go see Your Name. Your Name is a real breakthrough. Get Girls Lost on DVD, and both have fascinating things to say about the differences between genders.
Kermode isn't the only one who thinks Kimi no Na wa somehow has gender politics built into it. Shinkai allegedly has claimed inspiration from older Japanese works about gender and body swapping, such as Torekaya Baya Monogatari, Tenkyose, and Papa to Musume no Nanokakan, but in my opinion, Kimi no Na wa is quite regressive about the way it handles gender identity and expression. Now, I'm no Tumblrite, so I'm not going to claim that film is more important than it actually is. This film is not going to make much of a difference in regards to Japan's gender politics. It's not going to send it cascading decades into the past, and especially not going to do that over here in America. However, for Westerners to claim from a Western perspective that this film has any kind of commentary on gender, especially one that's positive, is absurd. So Taki, who is considered the masculine counterpart, goes into Mitsuha's body and makes her super popular because a girl dared to kick over desks and be an asshole. Mitsuha, the feminine counterpart, goes into Taki's body and makes him a sewing ditz who's not good at his job and is then adored by the ladies and is treated with jealousy by the men. When Taki, in Mitsuha's body, kicks over the desk, Makoto Shinkai is having Taki break character in order to have some cheap laughs at the extent of reinforcing gender stereotypes. But on both sides of the spectrum, Taki is acting impulsive and violent while in a girl's body, which is unexpected for Japan apparently, and therefore meant to be amusing for the audience. However, Taki's character, if anything, is quite quite effeminate. He never acts violent or masculine while in his own body, and is generally quite chilled out. He's not shown playing sports while the other kids are, but rather eats lunch on the side with his friends. Taki draws, which by no means is a masculine activity. The job he winds up going for at the end, landscaping, is hardly what I'd call masculine either. Taki is, for lack of a better word, quite androgynous, or even effeminate stereotypically at the beginning and the end of the film. Yet when he's in a girl's body, he suddenly behaves completely out of character to then act like a gender stereotype and is rewarded with popularity because a female is crass and violent and impulsive and into sports. Society, even in the rural town of Itamori, is rewarding transgressive behavior. For many people, they might get this lovely message of how it's beneficial to behave outside of gender norms, but I think it runs deeper than that, and for me, the film is saying quite the opposite. The film doesn't really have Taki or Mitsuha take any traits outside of their norms that they didn't already possess. Taki never learns to be more feminine, Mitsuha never learns to be more masculine, so their time in each other's gender roles is completely worthless. I also think, based on my research of Japan, it's naive to sell an idea of a society where people are just cool with others transgressing gender stereotypes.
だから僕の話し方や身のこなしが他の男子と違うからと日本では出る釘は打たれるっていう言葉があるんですけれども僕はその出てる釘だったので小さな頃から死にたかったこと
であるっていうふうなことを未だにそう思っているあるいはよくわからないっていう先生たちは3人に1人
For transgender students, the situation can be even worse. In Japan, LGBT students who try to report cases of bullying to their teachers are often faced with a refusal to engage because the teachers either don't understand sexual orientation or gender identity, or they see it as a taboo topic that they don't want to take up. Other students are told that the way they should solve the problem is to conform. They were told that their desire to be an openly gay or openly transgender student at the school was a selfish desire and was ruining the harmony of the school for everyone else.
Neither of these characters experienced really any hardships for behaving out of line, yet it wasn't until this year that there were laws put in place to protect LGBT students in the school systems. That was a year after Kimi no Na wa, and definitely no thanks to the film that this happened. Any hardships that could be experienced by these characters for behaving outside of their stereotypes are completely ignored, even reinforced narratively. Older tropes such as damsel in distress, which I have to emphasize I don't have a problem with necessarily, it really depends on how it's used, are a problem to many people, and they are found here, such as Mitsuha as a female character losing most of the agency for the second half of the story and only having one moment of action for the rest of the film. Her lines of action beforehand were inconsequential. That line of action is to convince her father to evacuate the city, which is never actually shown to us, and it makes it feel even less like a line of action for her. Again, I'm not saying that this film has to be any which way. Keep your damsel in distress. But for anyone to claim that Kimi no Na wa is quote-unquote progressive about its gender politics is stretching things quite a bit. This is the same movie which has shots of panning up and down Mitsuha's boobs. When Mitsuha's male friend retracts backwards because she's being friendly with him, and he says, and then Taki in her body responds with, this movie is kind of reinforcing that girls and gals can't be friendly. And let's not forget, this is the same movie which has a dude feel up a girl's boobs when she explicitly says not to, where the other participant is described as feeling like they're in a coma, and he's feeling up this girl's boobs. It's completely forgiven later, all for laughs. Are you serious, my dudes?
The unique Japanese humor that's in this film, a lot of humor here that you will never see in an American film, and it's so refreshing.
A better way to have approached this, I think, is to have Taki characterized as being more masculine in general. Mitsuha is fine the way she is, she's pretty girly, and then just have them swap bodies in order to discover that they are treated with challenges and roadblocks. Instead of being treated with respect when Taki acts like an asshole in Mitsuha's body, he's rejected. Have Mitsuha, whose normal personality is treated with cute adoration, acting effeminate, is suddenly then confronted by her co-workers and told that she's acting too gay, and she needs to stop it. I don't think any of this has to be unrealistically extreme, but then that would have them be forced into behaving like the genders that they're assigned to while in the opposite bodies. Mitsuha behaves more masculine to keep up with the rest of what's going on. Taki behaves more feminine. Both of them learn positive qualities about being masculine and feminine, respectively, and they carry that on throughout the film. Mitsuha could learn to be more assertive, not just because the power of love deems it so, but because she actually learned this skill while in Taki's body, and this would pay off when trying to convince her father to evacuate the city, and we'd be able to see all of it. Taki could learn to be more emotionally sensitive, which could tie confined to convincing Mitsuha's friends to help with the plan to save the town, or persuading Mitsuha's sister to evacuate immediately. This way you could address potential issues with society and have a solid message about finding positive qualities in both gender performances. People are meeting somewhere in the middle. It's more about finding the good in both of those. As it is now, Kimi no Na wa to me just kind of wishes Japanese society into being better than it is and reinforces older story archetypes. And as a result, it's keeping the status quo. While things are improving over there in the school systems for the LGBT community, there's still a long ways to go in places like the work environment. I'm not Japanese, so I can never be certain about what goes on over there, but from what I've researched and from my perspective as a gay artist and filmmaker who has his fair share of acting outside of gender norms, let me tell you, Kimi no Na wa's use of body swapping seems really weird and definitely undercooked.
It'd be hard to talk about the themes of natural disaster without drawing parallels to the 2011 Japan earthquake and tsunami. Even though Your Name has a natural disaster in it, I don't feel like it's a film about disasters. It seems like the real purpose it served is so we can add some spectacle to the experience. There's nothing wrong with that.
As a disaster of a movie, I don't think Kimi no Na wa is a good commentary on disaster or preserving culture, but I do think it succeeds in a few places. For one, I like the fact that it's a bit of a those who forget history are doomed to repeat it kind of film. You have paintings predicting the disaster of a comet crashing, and I think that works. The past is trying to warn us. What works a lot less is the structure, where the midpoint has a twist, where time travel and disaster both come into the forefront of the story. This was not a time travel story before then. This was not a disaster story before then. It wipes away much of the comedic tone in favor of something that feels so self-serious, and this works from a meta perspective where disaster comes out of nowhere, but hardly feels satisfying from a narrative perspective. You might think it's fine, I don't. And everything else I'm not a huge fan of at all. Sekai-Kei is a term to me that is rather confusing. I've seen a couple of different definitions, but from what I can find, it's a specific subgenre of Japanese disaster, and what I appreciate about Sekai-Kei, as I understand it, or disaster movies in general, is that they tend to confront grief and loss in a very real way. When an entire world is wiped out, you can't undo it. When a sacrifice is made, you can't undo it. It's part of what makes it powerful. In real life, when a disaster happens, think 9/11, you can't undo it. When someone dies to save someone else, you can't undo that death. Kimi no Na wa, rather than confronting grief or loss, has that all wiped away. The characters use time travel to save all the townspeople. And this is so untrue to real life, I can't help but roll my eyes. After the disaster, tradition seems to be arbitrarily erased by Shinkai. Mitsuha doesn't make an effort to preserve the Shrine Maiden traditions. I would really have liked to see her teach little girls or something, but instead they opted for her getting an apartment complex in the city. Mitsuha's grandmother mentions how a library of ancient documents explaining traditions and what they were meant to be for was burned down.
お宮も古文書も見なやけ、おかげで祭りの意味もわからんくなってまって、残ったのは形だけ。
And this sets up a theme of preserving the past. So you'd think that if Mitsuha doesn't fulfill that role, Taki would then wind up fulfilling that role somehow, perhaps drawing and painting lost landscapes, or landscapes on the edge of being lost to time, something to preserve the past. Instead, he opts for building new landscapes, as he puts it. Shinkai very much treats the whole film like a showcase of real-world Japanese landscapes, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do some research on it. So I can see how that fits in from a meta-narrative angle, as Shinkai preserving locations using film itself. However, I wouldn't have gotten that at all if I hadn't done some outside research. If characters also reinforce that message, I think we'd be golden, but as it stands, it's confusing. If it weren't for the photo gallery scene in the middle of the movie showing Itomori as well as the cave paintings, I'd say Shinkai is trying to suggest that we just forget about old traditions and embrace the fact that it's impossible to keep tradition. As it stands, I think his message comes across as muddled and entirely unclear. To me, it feels like there's no sacrifice in Kimi no Na wa, no learning to deal with not getting what you want. Perhaps Japan needs escapism post 3/11, but imagine if someone made a film about 9/11 and how it could be undone by a mystical god and time travel. How would you fucking feel about that, dudes? No amount of Musubi and Red Thread of Fate can overlook how dumb this is. Think of Shin Godzilla, which came out the same year. It handles disaster so much better. The destruction presented was palpable, and none of it could be undone. Instead, the film chooses to focus on teamwork and overcoming disaster before it gets even worse. It's a film acknowledging that not addressing disaster fast enough causes even more disaster, and that's a good message that parallels how Japan handled the situation. Kimi no Na wa, by comparison, is a film that I feel throws ideas at a wall and just generally says stuff without saying anything really, and it hopes that you're gonna read into its ideas that it keeps tossing around. Look, a movie is better when it has thematic threads that run through it. This movie is like James Cameron's Titanic, but if Rose and Jack travel back in time to stop the boat from sinking. Dreams are mentioned throughout the film. However, the form of the movie hardly evokes dreams. When I think of dreamlike anime, I think of the works of Satoshi Kon and how he edits time and space in a surreal way to evoke the feeling of dreams. This stems back to older forms of psychodrama created by legendary filmmaker Maya Deren, where she edits her films to evoke dreams, just as Kon took up many years later. Same can be said for Eternal Sunshine. Kimi no Na wa seems to use the term dreams to justify the characters forgetting things for the sake of the plot, than actually the movie feeling like a dream. Taki, despite being in a town for about a month, never remembered the name and eventually forgot Mitsua's name too, which sends him on a little pointless journey across the lands to find out both. He then compared his experience to being like a dream, but as far as the film feeling like a dream, it feels like a music video thanks to the cross-cutting and divisions of the frame that's more akin to music video style. Does it have anything to say about the nature of dreams? Satoshi Kon did, in fact, say something about the nature of dreams in combination with the formal elements of his films. He constantly compared films to dreams in his work, Paprika being the most obvious example. Kon was always trying to get at the core of human empathy with his movies. Dreams can be taken apart to learn something about ourselves. Films are a collective dream where we can learn about someone else on a mass scale. Kon is getting at the fact that films are a kind of ultimate form of empathy. To me, I haven't heard any meaningful interpretation of why this film evokes dreams. Childhood longing? I've heard that he wanted to make dreams seem melancholic and tied into desire for someone else, but to be honest, I don't feel that way at all, save for the scene where Taki drinks sake from Mitsuha. Well, how about Twilight, the time when people are most spiritually connected? Does that mean anything? I can't think of anything besides what the movie directly told me what it meant, where it's two worlds coming together in a spiritual way. What about Musubi, the god of time and fate who thinks that Taki and Mitsuha need to come together, you know what I'm saying? Yet we'll troll with them and make it hard for no fucking reason, but it's all good because it happens anyway in the end. Would it have been better for them to get along and not blow up a town and make them run in circles to learn nothing about each other anyway? Every spiel in the movie about fate intertwining and coming back in and breaking apart and intertwining is a bunch of nonsense. In real life, there is no application to be had for philosophically believing in fate, besides comfort that your life is apparently out of your hands. Threads are used all over the place, and it evokes imagery throughout the film. The red bars, signifying red strings of fate, or the obvious motifs like headbands, braids, the string around the sake, etc. Red thread of fate is a common Japanese trope. It's used in Tatami Galaxy, Yu Yu Hakusho, Kill la Kill, Rewrite, XXX-holic, etc, etc, etc. This ties in with themes of fate, and if Kimi no Na wa had anything interesting to say about it, it might be worth expounding on it further, but I don't think it is saying anything about it. Nor have I read an analysis I think is worth addressing about this subject. Then of course there's bizarre stuff in the film, like Mitsuha's father being the climax for her character. She has to confront him and convince him of her honesty to evacuate the town, and it's showed off screen as I've mentioned before, and it's not built up very well. She doesn't learn anything prior to be able to stand up to him. It would have been great again if she was forced to be more masculine and more aggressive and then use that ability to confront her father, but really this film doesn't have a nice structure to it. Her father is never, in my opinion, shown to be the primary adversary of the film, so why is he the climax of this movie? Her father hardly seems important to the film. I believe he's only in like 3 or 4 scenes, and he's never shown being the primary adversary or anything that Mitsuha really has to deal with. Her father tells her to stand straight up at the beginning of the film, and this is the only interaction he really has with her before the ending. He does, however, have a run-in with Taki in her body, where he thinks that she should go to a mental hospital for thinking there's a possibility that a comet would be dangerous. Incredible writing, Shinkai. Shinkai could have done a lot more to justify this father's behavior. There's not really a beginning, middle, or end to the relationship with the father, and it really does go nowhere. It's puzzling then why this was used as the emotional climax for the movie, and it's all off-screen. Structurally, as aforementioned, I dislike the tonal whiplash and the clear half-division between the more comedic gender-bending moments and the serious disaster halves. Neither half of the movie complements each other very well, and they honestly behave like 2 separate films. The music video montages also serve to stop the movie dead in its tracks, and montage important things that should have been more thoroughly explored in my opinion. It's a very transparent tactic for us to care about things like the relationship to one another and their friends, but I'm not really seeing much interaction between them, but I really want those things that are briefly flashed by to be actual moments between each other. And this would be fine if we actually had more relationship dynamics to explore, but we don't in this film. And it would be fine if there was more to the relationships than just montages. It's not really the character action or the writing doing anything, it's the music. And as much as I like the Radwimps' music in this film, I do take issue with these montages. I can't understand why people enjoy them for what it's worth though. Now for a few nitpicks. I don't like Taki not using Google Maps to find places like the schoolhouse. How did his friends even learn he was going out to look for Mitsuha? Who the fuck told him? He was also at an exhibition showing photos of the town. Did he not bother to check back if it was still there or get the name of it? Or maybe he could just Google that and possibly find the name of the town through the exhibition and the names of the individual photographs. I know there's always records of that kind of thing on websites for museums, etc. But nah, he goes on a very long, drawn-out journey to find the place and draw the entire place just to show it around. He could have Googled lakes in Japan and just narrowed it down that way. After all, it is in his drawing. You could just alleviate this problem altogether and set your movie before the internet. Oh, that's right, gotta tap into the contemporary youth culture, have our cake and eat it too. Everyone's pointed out the cell phone's problem with the dates. I'll just throw it out there. What about the dumb as hell boob jokes used over and over again? Was it really funny the first as it is the fifth? Come on, you guys. I liked that Mitsuha's friends believed Taki about the comment instantly, but no one else did. Not even their sister. Amazing! There was a lot of really dumb stuff involving forgetting the names as well. God, you're so fucking stupid for writing down I love you instead of your name. Jesus Christ. I know it's a god making them forget the names, so anything goes, which is really lame way to write, but whatever. Deus Ex and Diabolus Ex Machinas, whatever the fuck. Taki legit saw Mitsuha's name in the obituary a few minutes before forgetting, so did his friends. He should have just asked his friends to tell him. Also, why was the information being erased from his cell phone conveniently after he found the destruction, not straight after they stopped swapping? That was for fucking transparent dramatic effect, come on. I don't think this is the worst movie ever made, but I cannot and will never emotionally connect to it. I think that Shinkai's best work by far was 5 centimeters per second, and to me it's a shame Kimi no Na wa is hailed as his finest work. To me it's his most transparently manipulative and one of the shallowest works he's done, but it's well rendered enough to get people on board, as well as have lowbrow humor to spare it from getting accusations of pretension. I finally made my peace with this movie. I'm sure a lot of you out there will defend it with any given arguments or try to read further into it than I did in order to justify liking it. I didn't take apart the way it was directed, and I've seen several people comment about the directing in ways that I think is fine. Just remember that if you like something, you don't have to justify it. I'm willing to respect other people's opinions, and I'm willing to hear anyone else out, but I will probably never like it. Just because I watched it, I didn't like it. Anything that anybody says probably won't convince me to like it because I've seen it over and over again. I don't think this film will stand the test of time. I don't think it's at all moving in any way. Thanks for listening, and I hope you the best. Go Jesus out. Thanks to Hollow of Dawn for editing a good chunk of this video for me. I couldn't have made it so fast without him. Go check out his channel if you want to see some great-ass anime reviews. Also, thanks to my patrons for helping me make this possible. A special big thanks to Joshua Lopez. You have truly basked in the light of Go Jesus. Also, a big old gay huggles to Sage Wittalker, Leaf Blady, Anime Boy, and Honest Firu. Your contributions will go down in YouTuber history. Hopefully well. Also consider contributing to my Patreon for early access to vids like this, and an archive of YouTube videos YouTube doesn't want you to see. Links in the description below. Thank you all. I love you. Mwah. Peace.